what is a bond. So a bond is simply a loan given to the issuer, यानी कि borrower, by the bond holder, यानी कि lender, whereby terms of interest payment and redemption dates are predetermined. कहने का मतलब कि there is a borrower and there is a lender. Borrower हो गया bond issuer और lender हो गया bond holder, जो एक पैसा देता है for predetermined terms and conditions में, जो कि terms and conditions होती हैं interest payment की, tenure of the instrument की. ठीक है, this legal document registering this loan is called as a bond, and the issuer pays interest to the amount on the amount to the investor, and at the expiry of the bond the principal is given back to the investor. So ये basic definition of a bond की. So एक और line में sometimes there is always a confusion between investors की what is the difference between a bond and a debenture. So it's a very simple thing. Bonds are securities which are mostly issued by governments, and the bonds issued by companies or corporates are known as debentures. इतना ही difference largely होता है. अभी let's understand what are the basic characteristics of a bond. सबसे पहला कैरेक्टरिस्टिक या सबसे पहला इंस्ट्रूमेंट, सबसे पहला पॉइंट जो हम देखते हैं कि व्हाट इज हु इज द इश्यूअर ऑफ द बॉन्ड. यानी कंपनी और गवर्नमेंट हु इज इशूइंग अ बॉन्ड बिकम्स द इश्यूअर ऑफ द बॉन्ड. नाउ एवरी बॉन्ड एज एन इश्यूअर आई कैन issue a large quantum of bonds, maybe say 100 crore issuance or 1,000 crore issuance, but necessarily I will not get all the investors giving an equal amount of commitment of their investments. Somebody will be interested in investing 10 lakh rupees, one investor might be interested in investing 20 lakh rupees, one might come and say I want to invest 1 crore rupees. So there should be a minimum unit of a bond within which all investors can invest. So the minimum denomination or a unit of a bond is known as the face value of a bond. When an investor is investing into a bond, so he will expect some kind of returns. The return is in the format of interest income. This interest income is known as the coupon rate of the bond. And when the issuer is paying coupon or the interest to the investor, there is definitely an interest payment frequency. Now this frequency can be monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, annual, and sometimes cumulative. यानी कि जो regular frequency में आपको interest payment आएगा. Now, as a retail investor, you and me will not be able to understand what is the credit rating or what is the worthy of this issuer. कहने का मतलब ये कि if somebody is borrowing in my family or friends, I know that my money is safe and secure. If something goes wrong, I can go back to my friend or a family member and ask for the money. But if there is an issuer who is a large corporate and borrowing money, who's in remote area, I do not know which location here. I am from, say, Indore, and the issuer is from Bangalore. I do not know how to get in touch with him. So I do not have the credit worthiness. So there is an agency or the third party agency who does the credit evaluation of the issuer. इस एजेंसी को बोलते हैं क्रेडिट रेटिंग एजेंसी, एंड दे गिव अ क्रेडिट रेटिंग, AAA being the highest rating or the best rating which the issuer can get. We will learn more about the credit rating in the following slides. I have made the payment, I have given my principal amount, I have got the interest rate confirmation, interest rate frequency, and what is I want at the last is when is my money coming back, yani ki maturity of the bond. So maturity or a redemption or a repayment date is one of the important criteria which investors should look into when investing into a bond. And the last important factor is as an investor, who is an investor. A retail individual can become an investor, an institution can become an investor, or a corporate can become an investor. Now let's look into the basic cash flow. अभी हमने जो भी पढ़ा theoretically, how it looks practically as a point of investment. Say for an example, the bond issuer is ABC Limited. It's a hypothetical name, not the name of an exact company. And he is interested in raising funds, and the coupon rate defined is 10%. Interest payment frequency is annual, means every year the interest will be paid, and the tenure or the maturity of the bond is 5 years down the line. Face value of the bond is 1 lakh rupees. Allotment of the bond, and the day the bond has been allotted, the first day was 31st January 2022. Now what will happen is, since the interest payment frequency is annual, every year 31st January for the next 5 years, the issuer will pay interest to the bond holder. Now let's, in terms of the cash flow example, agar dekhen, Day one pay 1 lakh rupees. I have purchased one bond which is at a coupon rate of 10% on January 22. Now in 31st January 23 and 1 year down the line, I am entitled for interest at the rate of 10%. Yani 1 lakh rupees ka 10,000 rupees is the interest income which is, as an investor has earned. So going forward for next 5 years, and 23, 24, 25, 26, and 27, till the maturity date of the redemption date, I will get 10,000 rupees on 31st January every year. And on 31st January 27, yani maturity date, yani redemption date, I will get my principal also back. So 1 lakh rupees the principal or the face value at which I have invested, I will get 1 lakh rupees back. Now, as an investor, 1 lakh rupees is the one bond if I have invested. If I want to invest two bonds, I can invest into two bonds or two units at the total principal amount will be 2 lakh rupees. And in multiple, I can add 3 lakh, 4 lakh, 5 lakhs. Now, the structure of debt market in India can be explained in this very simple flow chart. Now, government and corporates are the two largest entities who borrow money. When a government borrow money, it is known as government securities, and when the corporates borrow money, they are known as corporate bonds. Governments, why do the government borrow money? Government borrow money for their social infrastructure development, for the defense requirements, for the infrastructure development. Corporate borrow money for their growth, for setting up new plants, new machinery, for setting up new business growth requirements, they borrow money. When a state government borrows money, that instrument is known as state development loan or SDLs. And when a central government borrow money, it is known as government securities or GSEC, जो हम सबसे ज़्यादा सुनते हैं. However, central government also borrow money for less than 1 year. When the instrument or the central government borrowing instrument which is less than 1 year, it is known as T-bills or treasury bills. And when it is more than 1 year, it is known as GSEC or government securities. And government securities can range up to 20 years, 30 years, and 40-year instruments as well. And every time 10-year GSEC is called as the benchmark for bonds. Now let's look into the corporate bond issuance mechanism. When a corporates can be of two types, which is public sector units or the private sector. Public sector, for example, IRFC, PFC, REC, NHAI. These are public sector enterprises who borrow money for their requirements. And private sectors like Tata, L&T, Aditya Birla, Mahindra and Mahindra are the name of the issuers who are in the private sector and they borrow money. Again, in this format also, there can be a short-term borrowing and a long-term borrowing. A short-term borrowing which is less than 1 year. These are known as CP and CDs, commercial papers or certificates of deposits. If a corporate is borrowing money for less than 1 year, it is known as commercial paper. Whereas a bank borrowing money for less than 1 year, it is known as certificate of deposits, CPs. And when they borrow money for more than 1 year, those instruments are known as non-convertible debentures, or in our common language, they are bonds. Corporates also do borrow money in the format of market-linked debentures. Market-linked debentures are basically same bonds which are linked to the underlying performance of some benchmark. The job of a credit rating agency is to assess the credit risk of a specific debt security and the borrowing entities. In a bond market, a rating agency provides the independent evaluation of the credit worthiness of a debt issuing entity. It can be a government, it can be a corporate, it can be any borrower who is intended to borrow money. So the main objective of a credit rating agency is to evaluate the financial situation of the borrower and the capacity to service or repay their financial obligations. Credit rating agencies act as a catalyst in channelizing investments in debt instruments and enabling individual as well as institutional investors in making informed decisions. How do we analyze what is the best? So AAA is considered to be the highest degree of credit rating. They are the safest category of investments with the least likelihood of default or credit issues. And then we move down the ladder. So AAA highest ho gaya, फिर AA plus, AA minus, and then we move to single A category and triple B. Up till the credit rating of triple B, they are considered as investment grade instruments. यहाँ पे investment किया जा सकता है. Anything below triple B is considered as non-investment grade instruments. Every credit rating agency is appointed by SEBI, or a SEBI becomes the main entity who give license to the credit rating agencies. CRISIL, ICRA, India Ratings, CARE Ratings are basically a couple of names who are the credit rating agencies, and they provide credit rating to all the instruments in the fixed income category. So as an independent individual investor, we have to just evaluate who is the rating agency and what is the credit rating the instrument has received. How does the bond comes in the market? So most of you are from the equity market. You understand that IPO is the mode of issuance when it comes to equities. Same is the case. Bonds also comes in the market in a similar fashion. The most common is the private placement and public issue format. Public issue, yani ki similar to equity public issue, we have debt public issues as well, where the bonds comes into the mass market level, where any category of investors can apply. It can be institutional category, HNI, corporates, retail. They can apply in these bonds. The face value of a bond when it comes to public issue category comes with a 1,000 rupee face value and a minimum unit of the bond, whereas the minimum application can be 10,000 and in multiple of 1,000 and above. So you can, first application can be 10,000 and then 11, 12, 13,000 you can apply in this category. Corporates, HNIs, institutions all can apply when the bond comes in the public issue format. However, things to keep in mind, unlike equity, in a bond public issue, it is always on a first come first serve basis. So it is always advisable to put your application on the very first day in the debt public issue or a bond public issue. The second most largely used format of bonds issuance is the private placement mechanism. How does it happen is, in a private placement, generally the bonds are issued to larger category of investors like institutions, corporates and HNIs. However, the bonds can be available in the secondary market for the retail investors as well. So on the basis of face value, they can come up in the retail investors can also apply. The face value when it comes to private placements of bonds are 1 lakh and above. It can be 1 lakh, it can be 10 lakhs, and in some cases can be 1 crore as well. However, these are the two major formats of bonds coming into the market. The bonds can be categorized, or types of bonds can be defined in two bases. Let's study first the bonds on the basis of the structure of bonds. The first one can be as fixed coupon bond. So as the name suggests, fixed coupon means the coupon rate or the interest rate for the bond will remain fixed till the time of maturity of the bond. So agar 5 years ka bond issuance hua, fixed coupon rate bond hai, bond has been issued at 8% rate of interest. So the entire life cycle of a bond will have a same coupon rate, yani ki wo 10% for 5 years tak regularly pay karta rahega. So the other option is floating rate bond, means the coupon rate can change on the basis of some parameters. These are known as floating rate bonds, and floating rate bonds are linked to some kind of a reference index, which can be a GSEC or an MCLR or a T-bill, and depending upon the movement of the underlying, the floating rate bond coupon rates also changes. It can be, say, GSEC plus 25 basis point for hypothetical, for example. So if GSEC is 6.5 plus 25 is यानी कि आपका अभी 6.75 rate coupon हो गया. If a GSEC move from 6.5 to 6.75, means the coupon rate of the bond will be readjusted to 7% because वो coupon rate plus 25 basis points. So these are known as floating rate bonds. Bonds can also come in a format where zero coupon bonds होते हैं. Zero coupon means they will not have a regular interest payment because the coupon is zero, but they are issued at the discount to their face value. For an example, let's understand if the bond face value is 100 rupees, they are issued at 90 rupees. So 90 rupees per bond issue, as an investor, I can subscribe to 90 rupees, but on maturity, say 3 years down the line, I will get 100 rupees of the face value. Now this difference of 10 rupees becomes my interest component फॉर अ 3-year पीरियड. सो एवरी ईयर के हिसाब से हम अगर 3 years का ड्यूरेशन है, 3 रुपीज हम ऐड कर सकते हैं, 3.33 रुपीज. सो दैट बिकम्स द कंपोनेंट ऑफ एन इंटरेस्ट which can be calculated. So zero coupon bond are issued at a discount to the face value, and that's the reason why they are called as zero coupon. Of late, some of the very highly liquid or demandable bond structures are tax-free bonds. Tax-free bonds यानी कि bonds where the interest income is exempted from tax. So ये bonds 2012 से 2016 में बहुत सारे इश्यू हुए थे बाय PSU entities, PFCs, IRSC, NHAI, REC, HUDCO, NABARD to name a few, जिन्होंने ये बॉन्ड इश्यू किए थे. लार्जली लव्ड बाय ऑल द कैटेगरी ऑफ इन्वेस्टर्स, चाहे वो HNI हो, रिटेल हो, कॉर्पोरेट हो, बिकॉज ऑब्वियसली फ्रॉम एन इंडियन कॉन्टेक्स्ट एनीथिंग व्हिच इज टच्ड विद टैक्स फ्री वर्ड, तो डिमांड सबसे ज्यादा आ जाती है. सो टैक्स फ्री बॉन्ड्स हैव बीन वेरी वेरी loved by all the category of investors because यहाँ पे interest income is tax free or tax exempted. The other category of all the other bonds are interest income is taxable. इसके अलावा market linked debentures होते हैं, यानी कि bonds which are linked to the performance of an underlying index. Now underlying index can be a Nifty, or an underlying index can be a GSEC, or it can be SLR, so MCLR rates, which can become an underlying base index, and on the performance of the index, the returns of the investor can be defined, or the returns of the bonds can be defined. Those instruments are known as market linked debentures. However, effective from this year onwards, after the budget, the taxation structures of MLDs has been changed. As a result, they attract short-term capital gain tax. So it becomes these are not the very attractive instruments left in the market at this moment. इसके अलावा एक स्ट्रक्चर और एक टाइप और कैटेगरी ऑफ बॉन्ड होता है जो कैपिटल गेन बॉन्ड्स होता है, और इसे हम 54 EC बॉन्ड्स भी बोलते हैं, बिकॉज ये इनकम टैक्स सेक्शन 54 EC में लगता है. in this category, these bonds are for investors where they have to save their tax which is earned on the sale of property or real estate. So if you have earned some amount of capital gain on your property or a land investments or an apartment or a flat, that capital gain which you have accrued for the for after selling the property can be deployed into capital gain bonds. They give the current rate of interest is 5.25%. They are 5-year lock-in period instruments where the money cannot be utilized. After the 5 years, the issuer will pay back the principal to the investors. Large three issuers are there who issue capital gain bonds, which are REC, PFC, and IRFC. And maximum 50 lakh rupees per year of which you have gained in form of capital gains can be invested into capital gain bonds. Bonds can also be classified on the basis of the issuers. So who is issuing the bond, यानी कि जो borrower है हम उसके ऊपर भी define कर सकते हैं types of bonds को. So first category हो गई GSEC यानी government securities, यानी कि we discussed earlier government securities यानी central government borrowing money. This is considered to be the highest degree of safety. They are sometimes also called as sovereign bonds because either you are lending money to Government of India and Government of India is borrowing for their own requirements, which can be for social development activities, for infrastructure development, for medical or other supplies for the country, for setting up schools, colleges, or any format of bridges, these or for a defense budget. So this is when they are borrowing money. These instruments are known as government securities, where the issuer is central government. The second category, in a similar format, when state government requires money for their own state development requirements, these instruments are known as state development loans or SDLs. इसके अलावा एक और बड़ी कैटेगरी हो जाती है PSU bonds. PSU यानी कि entities which have the equity ownership either by the state government or the central governments. जैसे हमने एग्जांपल बोले NHAI, PFCs, REC, these are all PSUs और सरकारी कंपनी जिसे हम बोलते हैं. They also require money for their growth and development, so they also borrow money from the market. When they borrow money, these instruments are known as PSU bonds or public sector enterprise bonds. Apart from this, private corporates also borrow money and they are known as corporate bonds. Now, private corporates, private companies like Mahindra and Mahindra, L&T, Tata, they also borrow money for the regular growth and business expansion. So when they borrow money, these instruments are known as corporate bonds or private and company bonds or non-convertible debentures. One more large category of issuers are NBFCs, non-banking and financial service companies, who borrow money on a regular interval for their growth. Because NBFCs ke liye money becomes their raw material, so they have to borrow and then lend money. This is how they grow their businesses, and they borrow money on a regular interval. So they are the regular issuers of bonds. NBFCs like Shriram Transport Finance, Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services, or say small microfinance companies, Ashirwad Microfinance, Gold Finance companies, Muthoot or Manappuram. These are all NBFCs who borrow money for their regular expansion and growth, and these are known as NBFC bonds. One more large category of borrower in Indian context are the banks. Banks also borrow money for their expansions. Now, banks can be either government bonds like an SBI or a PNB or a Bank of Baroda, or a private bank like an HDFC or ICICI or IndusInd Bank. They also borrow money for their growth, because bank also follows a similar business model. They borrow money and then they lend money. The difference is what they earn is an NIM. So banks also require cash as a raw material, and they also are the regular issuers of bonds. So when bank are the issuers for the bonds, these are known as bank bonds. The first objective of investments into bonds is my principal should be protected. So your job is to read bare minimum basic things of a bond and then invest into money. Now, what is that basic document you should read? That document is known as the term sheet. And these are the some characteristics of the term sheet which you should read before investing into bonds. So first and foremost, who is the issuer of the bond? For an example, हमारे लिए ABC Finance Limited हो गया. What was the issue size? For 100 crores is an issue size of the bond. So ठीक है, this is the average size bond issuances. Generally, bond issuances between 50 crores, 25-50 crores are considered. 25 to 100 crores are considered as small issuances. 100 to 500 crores are considered as medium size issuances, and 500 crores are said we said large issuances. And when it comes to PSUs, they borrow in a very large chunk. The issue size can go up to 2,000 crores and 5,000 crores also. So issue size is a very important criteria. Mode of issuance of the bond. So whether the bond has been come in the market via a private placement mechanism or in the public issue route, you should read into it. Type of the instrument. Type of the instrument is one definition can give you all the basic terms and conditions of a bond. So type of the instrument is a senior bond secured, and it is backed by collateral. It's a redeemable bond, means the redemption will happen and your principal will come back to you at the maturity. Rated means they've been rated by a rating agency. Listed means they're listed on the stock exchanges. Taxable, interest rate is taxable, and non-convertible debenture. So senior, secured, redeemable, rated, listed, taxable, non-convertible debenture. This is known as the type of the instrument. Seniority, obviously senior bond or a subdebt bond, it gives you the seniority structure of a bond. Credit rating, CRISIL AA plus means this bond has been rated by CRISIL, and AA plus is the exact rating of this bond. Issue price, the bond has been issued at par or a price of 1 lakh rupees and the face value of 1 lakh rupees. So this is not issued at a discount to the face value. It is issued at par value and the issue price and the face value remain the same. Coupon rate is 8% per annum, यानी कि 8% के rate पे ब्याज देगा. Coupon payment frequency is monthly, and every month you will receive the interest payment. Coupon type is fixed. There is no change in the coupon rate for the life cycle of a bond. Tenure is 24 months or 2 years. This is the duration of the bond. And at the end of the duration, the bond will be redeemed or the bond will be matured and the principal will come back to the investor's account. Security of the bond, since it's a secured bond, is a first charge on the receivables of the issuer with a minimum security cover of 1.25x on the principal and interest put together. So it's a secured bond, secured against the receivables of the issuer and 1.25x times. यानी कि अगर 100 crore का issue है, so 125 crores worth of securities have been has been kept in favor of security for the investors. One more thing is, in terms of redemption, there is one more option, which is call and put options, which are available sometimes in bonds. Call option क्या होता है? Call option is an option which the issuer can exercise and they can redeem the bond before the maturity date. For example, इधर एक केस में example लिखा हुआ हमने 18 months के लिए. So though the duration of the bond is 24 months, issuer can exercise their call option and redeem the bond after the end of 18 months, यानी कि 1.5 साल में बंद कर सकता है. Similarly, put option भी होता है. Put option यानी कि the investor has the rights to exercise his option of put and surrender the bonds and demand the principal at the end of 18 months. ये generally क्यों होता है कि sometimes issuer says कि the interest rate, suppose I am doing a bond today, interest rates at the peak, I am borrowing at 8%. There might be a possibility that 6 months or 1 year down the line, interest rates will come down. And as an issuer, I can borrow money at say 7% also 1 year down the line. So if I have an advantage of borrowing money at 7%, why should I pay 8% coupon? So issuer can take a call, exercise his call option and borrow fresh money at a lower rate. Similarly, put option can help the investor. Suppose interest rate moves in the opposite direction and it moves from current say 8% to move to 9%. The investor will say, why should I deploy my money at 8% when the same money can be deployed at 9%? So let me exercise my put option and redeploy to a newer bond where I can earn higher rate of interest. So call and put options are also options for redemption. So this is basically a basic term sheet which every investor should read before investing into a bond, and it gives you a clear-cut picture of the overall instrument details. The full document is known as the information memorandum or the offer document, which covers all the details of a bond when it is issued, and it is available on IndiaBonds website where you can read all these things. Term sheet and the issuer offer documents are always available on our website, so for investors to go through. Now let's understand bonds versus other asset classes, and I am just putting FDs as a basic understanding of an asset class because bonds को हम बहुत clearly associate कर पाते हैं with FDs यानी फिक्स्ड डिपॉजिट से. FDs हमारे लाइफ में मतलब वो एक लेजी फॉर्मेट ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट रहा ही है शुरू से. पीपल प्रेफर कि यार बैंक में FD कर देते हैं, एक ब्याज रेट मिल जाएगा और मेरा प्रिंसिपल प्रोटेक्टेड रहेगा. करेक्ट. नाउ in my entire definition of an FD, आपने एक चीज इंपॉर्टेंट नोट की होगी. The first most important criteria जो इन्वेस्टर बैंक में या कॉर्पोरेट में FD करने जाता है, वो पहला चीज देखता है, my principal is protected. This is the first definition when we look for fixed income investments. When I am looking for fixed income investments, my criteria is my money should be or my principal should be protected. That's the reason why I look for fixed income investments. Okay? And FD becomes a very alternative or an easy product or a lazy product or a familiar product because my father used to do it, my mother used to do it, my grandfather used to do it. Let me also do my money or invest my money in bank FDs where I'll get an XYZ return. Now these returns are sometimes not appropriate to the market conditions. Let's understand how and what differentiates between a bond and an bank FD. We are not against any particular product or an asset class. It's just to differentiate between what are the features available. FDs तो 40 साल 50 साल से जब से बैंकिंग इंडस्ट्री बनी है तब से हमारे यहाँ चली रहे हैं. 50 साल से 60 साल से FD कर रहे हैं. But why bonds are taking a bigger role or it's coming up aggressive in the market? FDs में क्या होता है? You have a fixed rate of interest return which is defined by the bank. कि आपको अगर आपने SBI में गए, आपने बोला 3 साल के लिए मेरे को पैसा रखना है, you will get say hypothetically 6.5% rate of interest, and at the end of the maturity your money will be given to your account. So you have 6.5%. Your interest rate is fixed and defined and true. That's it. Okay. सिमिलरली बॉन्ड्स में भी यही होता है। बॉन्ड्स में भी आपको जब आपने 3 साल के लिए कोई इंस्ट्रूमेंट में इन्वेस्ट किया, यू हैव ए कूपन रेट व्हिच कैन बी से 7%, 7.5% और 6.5%. I will not compare coupon rates right now, but in going forward we can understand differentiate in terms of coupon rates also. So coupon rate, suppose 7%, I have invested into a 7% coupon rate, and the bond duration is 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, and I have invested into these bonds. My interest rate is defined, returns is fixed. Now the catch is, bond is a tradable instrument and the returns are function of the market as well. I have invested to this. Suppose we understand that right now that we are at the peak of the interest rate cycle. Interest rate बहुत ऊपर है, so you're getting higher rate of interest. But what will happen, say 1 year or 2 years down the line? 1 year down the line, there is a high possibility the interest rate will come down. तो बॉन्ड जो आज से 100 रुपीज में खरीद रहा हूँ, हो सकता है वो 1 साल बाद बॉन्ड प्रीमियम में चला जाएगा। Even though the maturity of the bond is 3 years, 1 year down the line when bond में ज्यादा प्रीमियम हो जाएगा, यानी डिमांड ज्यादा बढ़ जाएगा। This is probably we're going to do it in a second chapter or second side where we're going to understand more of bond and yield and how these functions. I'll just give you a glimpse of it. So bond का डिमांड ज्यादा हो जाएगा तो उसमें प्राइस बढ़ जाएगा और yield कम हो जाएगा। So आज शायद मैंने 7% में इन्वेस्ट किया है, हो सकता है बॉन्ड के रेट नीचे आ जाएंगे, इंटरेस्ट रेट नीचे आ जाएंगे तो मेरे बॉन्ड का यील्ड नीचे हो जाएगा और प्राइस बढ़ जाएगा। तो देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी आई कैन अर्न कैपिटल गेन एज वेल इन माय बॉन्ड्स। सो नॉट ओनली आई एम अर्निंग माय फिक्स्ड कूपन, आई हैव अ पोटेंशियल टू अर्न हायर कैपिटल गेन्स, जो क्लब करके इंटरेस्ट रेट और कैपिटल गेन ऐड कर लेंगे, सो व्हिच विल बी अ हायर रिटर्न देन इन बैंक एफडीज। So there is a possibility which you make capital gains also in the bonds. The second is bonds can be secured and unsecured in nature, whereas your FDs are for sure unsecured. Banks do not give any product which is secured. चाहे वो बैंक का बॉन्ड होगा या बैंक की FD होगी, technically they are unsecured in nature. Unsecured means they are not backed by any collateral. So even if you do an SBI ka bank FD, they are not secured. Luckily or touch wood, God forbid, SBI will not gonna come and default, but if any circumstances, if something goes wrong, you are entitled only up to a 5 lakh rupees for an insurance of this bank FD. So that is against to a insured amount and not collateral based, and the maximum limit is 5 lakh rupees. This is under deposit insurance credit guarantee scheme which is run by the government. Whereas bonds on the other side are secured as well. So bonds can be secured by assets as so say a company borrowing money, say 50 crore rupees, giving us 1.5x cover, and the collateral is on the basis of some assets or factory or plant and machinery. So if God forbid and something goes wrong with the issuer and he is not able to fulfill his financial obligations of interest and principal payment, the investor will have the right that where the collaterals can be sold and the money can be recovered. So safety perspective, bonds can be secured and unsecured. Now unsecured भी bonds होते हैं. Suppose if say tomorrow Tata comes up and says I want to borrow money, I'll give you a secured bond at 8%, but if you will take unsecured bond, I might give you an 8.25% rate of interest. So inherently we know that Tata is a very large entity, a good entity. They do not default. I might invest into an unsecured instrument as well, because I know that there's another 2.25 basis point higher rate of interest I can earn from the same issuer, same credibility. So you have safety as well as security when it comes to bonds. Now, एक बड़ा फैक्टर और होता है when we invest our money. The most important thing, हमको एक asset class में invest करते हैं, और अगर वो asset class liquid ही ना हो, मतलब मेरे लिए trading ही नहीं करने पहले, आज मैंने 5 साल के लिए बैंक FD कर दिया, but say 1 year down the line, I require that money for some emergency, some requirement is there for some reasons. बैंक में ये penalty charges लगते हैं if I'll take a premature withdrawal. Whereas bonds doesn't have a lock-in period. There is no lock-in period. They are listed on the exchange. They are tradable instruments, and you can sell it. Sell it in partials also. Suppose I have invested 5 lakh rupees in bonds, and bond unit is 1 lakh rupees. So I can sell. Say I require only 2 lakh rupees of liquidity. So I can sell only 2 bonds of 1 lakh each, and I can take my liquidity and I can trade in the market. So then there is no penalty charges or redemption charges when I liquidate my bonds. Whereas in FDs, they are additional premature withdrawal charges or penalty charges. So bonds इधर में भी एक upper hand लेके आते हैं. अच्छा, इंटरेस्ट पे आउट फ्रीक्वेंसीज वो दोनों में ऑलमोस्ट सेम होती है, मंथली, क्वार्टरली, एनुअल, क्यूमुलेटिव। बॉन्ड्स भी ऐसे इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट फ्रीक्वेंसी रखते हैं और एफडीज भी ऐसे इंटरेस्ट पेमेंट फ्रीक्वेंसी रखते हैं। लोन कोलैटरल्स, यस, बॉन्ड्स आर आल्सो प्लेजेबल और बॉन्ड्स के अगेंस्ट भी आपको लोन मिलता है, बैंक एफडीज के अगेंस्ट भी आपको लोन मिलता है। टैक्सेशन, मोर और लेस टैक्सेशन भी सेम है। टीडीएस, इंटरेस्ट इनकम में टीडीएस बॉन्ड में भी लगता है, इंटरेस्ट इनकम में टीडीएस एफडीज में भी लगता है। इफ यू फॉल अंडर, इफ यू have a lower tax slab, you can fill in 15G and 15H form respectively। जैसे आप बैंक एफडी के लिए वो फॉर्म भरते हैं, वो आप बॉन्ड्स में भी कर सकते हैं। if you are not in the tax bracket and you want to claim 15G or 15H, you can do it. Interest is taxable as per the interest rate. So interest or taxation in bond interest income is added into your other formats of income, likewise in FDs as well. So that is there, which is available in bonds as well as in FDs. Acha, however, in capital gain, taxation is slightly different. Capital gains में if you have held the bond for more than 1 year, आपने 1 साल से ज्यादा bond रखा है, and if you have sold it and you got a capital gain, the taxation in bonds, listed bonds, is only 10% flat, ठीक है, without any indexation. So आपने suppose hypothetically 100 रुपए का bond खरीदा था, 1 साल बाद आपने बेचा और 110 रुपीज में बेचा, तो 10 रुपीज becomes your capital gain. Now this capital gain पे tax only 10% होता है after 1 year. The most important thing when it comes to between bonds and FDs is the real return of the investor. FDs have proven time and again that they are giving negative returns to the real return. मतलब in the sense कि क्या हो रहा है, if say I am investing into an FD जहां मेरे को 6% या 6.5% का रिटर्न मिल रहा है, but my inflation is 7%, so मेरा 100 रुपए का वैल्यू after 1 year, because 7% inflation से 93 rupees हो रहा है, the purchasing power of my 100 rupees has become 93 rupees because of the inflation at 7%, higher inflations. But अगर if the same money I have deployed into FDs और वो मेरे को 6.5% रिटर्न दे रहा है, so technically I am getting a negative return. जो मेरा रिटर्न होना चाहिए था 100 plus 6.5, because of higher inflation वो 93 हो गया था, मैंने इन्वेस्ट किया 6.5% में, the real value is my for the money is again 50 basis point lower than the actual value, so मैं 93 भी नहीं मिल रहा है। Whereas if I am investing into bonds, I may choose to not to invest into a lower return of bank FD. I may look for a corporate or a bond of a PSU which gives me relatively higher returns. यानी कि मैं inflation अगर 6% 7% चल रहा है, I can invest into a 8% 9% or 10% coupon bond. So my real return is much higher as compared to the bank FD return. And simultaneously, all the other features of principal protection, interest payment frequencies are still intact. I don't have to explain anything in detail about equity because you guys are all equity investors, but just on the basis of understanding, we'll just do a basic clarification about bonds versus FDs, bonds versus equities as an asset class. So I'll start with an example, then you will have a better understanding between bonds and equities. Suppose if I'm a parent, my son wants to go for higher education 2 years or 3 years down the line, and he said, "Papa, मैं USA जा रहा हूँ, give me some money," and I've saved a good chunk of money for 3 years. For last 7, 8 years, 10 years, I'm accumulating money, and said कि तेरे को 2025 में US के लिए पढ़ने जाना है. Unfortunately, I have invested that money in equity markets because I'm considering that this is a relatively better, higher returns milta hai, I'll get better returns. And I've invested all my money in one basket and I've invested into equity markets. God forbidden, abhi COVID aaya tha, kuch aur aa gaya 2025 mein, and the market crashes. What will happen is my principal has deteriorated, or whatever the appreciation or the amount which I have थॉट कि मेरे का इतना पैसा मिल जाएगा या 25 में मैं विड्रॉ कर लूंगा, वो नहीं कर पाता. ईदर आई हैव टू एक्सटेंड द डेट कि अभी और आई हैव टू रिड्यूस माय गोल, यानी कि एक्सटेंड द डेट इन द सेंस कि ओके 2025 यू कैन नॉट गो टू यूएस, प्रोबब्ली यू कैन ट्राई 2026 or 27, 1 year or 2 years, because the market will take 1-2 years to recover and my money will come to that level. Or you have to reduce your goal कि okay US is not there, probably try some universities in India or Bombay where the same amount of money can be utilized. Whereas hypothetically आपने वही पैसा अगर बॉन्ड में इन्वेस्ट किया होता, you have accumulated, you have invested now last 2-3 years left, you have invested into bonds which are maturing 2 years or 3 years down the line. से 25 में बॉन्ड में इन्वेस्ट किया, कुछ टाटा के बॉन्ड में, कुछ गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज जीसेक में इन्वेस्ट कर दिया, कुछ आपने एलएनटी के बॉन्ड में कर दिया, where your blended 9% 10% आपको yield मिलेगा and maturity it is 25. So even if the market conditions are खराब, कि इक्विटी मार्केट टैंक हो गया, कोविड आ गया, कुछ और हो गया, the issuer is still liable to make honor of their obligations. यानी कि वो आपको फिर भी आपका पूरा प्रिंसिपल with interest on that particular day, यानी रिडेम्पशन डे और मैच्योरिटी डे में आपको वापस करेगा. सो मार्केट कंडीशंस कुछ भी हो, आपको फिर भी आपका पूरा प्रिंसिपल मिलेगा और पूरा इंटरेस्ट उस टाइप का मिलेगा. ठीक है. सो it makes you confident that your goals are achieved at the specified time at the specified rate. So bonds help you define your returns at a lower risk profile. So large difference है ये. अब हम इसको define कर सकते हैं returns में. bonds कूपन रेट होता है तो वो आपका डिफाइंड रिटर्न है, आपको मालूम है आपको 8% इंटरेस्ट मिलना ही मिलना है एवरी ईयर टिल द टाइम यू हैव इन्वेस्टेड इनटू. Unlike equity, 1 year might get 9%, 10% returns, one year might get -5 returns, 1 year you can get 14% return, and 1 year you might get only 2% returns. So those are known as volatile returns and at a cost of principal or at a higher risk. तो पहला हो गया रिटर्न्स का प्रोफाइल. सेफ्टी में मैंने कहा प्रिंसिपल पेमेंट की आपकी सेफ्टी होती है बिकॉज the borrower or the issuer has to compulsorily make sure that he makes the principal payment to the investor, whereas equity mein it is subject to market conditions. You have a predictable cash flows. If I'm a senior citizen, I might not look for equity as an investment because I need regular cash flow. So मैं bonds में invest कर दूं where I'm getting a regular interest every month. मेरे को एक ब्याज आ रहा है. This is my predictable income or this is my cash flows. So I can have my own predictable cash flows or income when it comes to bonds, which is not there in equity markets. Acha, one more advantage when it comes to bankruptcy. Unfortunate circumstances, if the issuer or the company gets defaulted, whether so the first priority is always given it to the bond holders and the last priority is always on the equity holders. So if the company has to default and उनका पूरा assets को अगर सेल किया जाएगा तो जो पैसा बचेगा उसमें सबसे पहली प्रायोरिटी होती है सिक्योर्ड बॉन्ड होल्डर्स को देना, फिर अनसिक्योर्ड बॉन्ड होल्डर्स को देना, फिर अदर लायबिलिटी उनको इन्वेस्टर्स को देना, एंड लास्ट प्रायोरिटी में होता है इक्विटी इन्वेस्टर. सो इफ समथिंग गोज रॉन्ग, बॉन्ड होल्डर्स स्टिल हैव अ हाईएस्ट प्रायोरिटी. अगेन इन बॉन्ड्स में भी थोड़ा रिस्क होता है विच इज नोन एज इंटरेस्ट रेट रिस्क, यानी कि कैसा इंटरेस्ट फ्लक्चुएट हो रहा है. So then if you are if the market moves, interest rates move against the thought process, यानी कि जिससे लास्ट ईयर में इंटरेस्ट रेट्स रिवर्स चले थे, ऊपर ही चढ़ते जा रहे थे, तो बॉन्ड में भी थोड़ा वैल्यू डिप्रिशिएट होता है, बट इट इज ओनली व्हेन यू आर सेलिंग द बॉन्ड इन द सेकेंडरी मार्केट. इफ यू आर होल्डिंग टिल मैच्योरिटी इट डजंट अफेक्ट द इन्वेस्टर. ये रिस्क इक्विटी मार्केट में ज्यादा बड़ा होता है. लिक्विडिटी, यस, इक्विटी रिलेटिवली हायर लिक्विड होता है, आप इमीडिएटली जाके स्क्रीन पे बेच सकते हो. बॉन्ड्स में लिक्विडिटी इज अ फंक्शन ऑफ मल्टीपल फैक्टर्स व्हिच इंक्लूड्स, आपने सिंगल ए कैटेगरी का बॉन्ड लिया है, ट्रिपल ए कैटेगरी का बॉन्ड लिया है, तो ट्रिपल ए होगा, हाईली लिक्विड होगा बिकॉज ऑलवेज हायर डिमांड होता है, and so forth. So these are the large differentiations between equity and bond as an asset class. So as I said, bonds में भी risk होता है. ऐसा नहीं होता है कि bond is risk free investment. Again, you have to look into, this is a financial instrument and investment in bonds is subject to market risk. Please read the offer documents carefully before investing. That is always applicable to here as well. Now liquidity risk, I said, because these are still not very heavily traded like an equity market, so there is always a liquidity risk. You might not sell the bond today, maybe you take 2 days or 3 days or 5 days. There is a possibility of a fraud risk. You might have invested into a wrong bond, so you have to always make sure that you read the term sheet, information memorandum correctly before investing into bonds. Subject to market risk, as I said, market interest rate move हो रहा है, market conditions ऊपर नीचे हो रही हैं, then you have to take a call accordingly. And credit risk is similar to whether it is an equity or a debt. It is the same thing. Credit risk यानी कि if the issuer I have invested into से बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहा था 2 years बैक, बट कोविड आ गया एंड द ओवरऑल परफॉर्मेंस ऑफ द कंपनी हैज डिटोरिएटेड, उनका कलेक्शंस खराब हो गया, दे आर नॉट एबल टू मेक मोर मनी, और काफी डिफॉल्ट हो गया, सो देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी उनका क्रेडिट रेटिंग डाउनग्रेड हो जाए। वन नॉच मैंने इन्वेस्ट किया था AA+ में, पर अब AA आ गया, तो एक नॉच रेटिंग डाउनग्रेड हो गया, तो दिस नोन एज अ क्रेडिट रिस्क। सो देयर आर कपल ऑफ रिस्क व्हिच आर एसोसिएटेड विद बॉन्ड्स एज वेल।